Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if everything has gone right, and I admit we've had technical difficulties so far this evening, so it may not have done, we are live with Affairs of the State, Episode 4. Now, it's taken us a couple of episodes to get this far, to be perfectly honest with you. The first couple of episodes involved, I think, 5 people, and then 4, and finally this evening we are 3. It's only the Americans left. There is nothing to stop in their way of world domination. It is, of course, the Dave and Jeff show. How are you guys doing this evening?
Doing very well.
Doing well, thank you.
And that gives me a sneaky opportunity to go ahead and adjust some mic volumes. Boom! We're all done. Who needs sound checks, right? So this is the 4th episode of Affairs of the State. There is quite a lot to talk about. The new age has started. The previous age has ended, of course. And a reasonable number of changes coming into effect. But before we talk about any specific change, I guess in turn, Dave, Jeff, if you guys could maybe summarize sort of the end of the last age and the start of this one, and how the changes, like just the overall feel of the game, you think has worked out so far.
Dave, I'll let you go first.
So sure. So kind.
Well, the changes do seem to be affecting quite a lot. You've got both positive and negatives that are going to go along with anything. The positives that I've seen from the kingdom that I'm playing in this age, which isn't by any stretch of the word a top kingdom, where I think right in the middle of the server right now, and there's just with the removal of fort, there's all kinds of targets all over the server. So there's nobody that's just out of the running as a potential target because they're in the full fortified protections. Right. But on the other hand, every time my kingdom has left a war, of which we've had 3 so far, we just get hammered by 4 or 5 kingdoms that and there's not much we can do about it.
So it's feels a little bit more like a free for all then, kind of a little bit more dynamic. I say a little bit.
Yeah, you don't have that. You're not afforded that ability to choose your protection. You have to, utilize some strategy and, thinking a little bit farther ahead and, plan what you're going to do. And sometimes those plans are not something you would ever want to choose to do.
Well, quite. How about you, Jeff? How have things panned out for you so far?
I think a number of the changes have panned out the way we wanted them to.
Oh, no, I just mean you and your kingdom. I want to know how badly you're getting pummeled.
Oh, okay. My province has been hit 21 times this age.
Wait, you keep a counter?
Well, of course, it's in your province history. You should go look at yours.
Yeah, I mean, I've been hit 21 times in about the last 3 days, so I just gave up a long time ago.
So I've been hit 21 times this age. 7 of them were bounces.
Oh, snap.
I'm playing a Dark Elf Mystic. Our kingdom, we've been through 3 wars at this point. We do get hit coming out of pretty much every war. But, overall it's been a pretty good age for me.
And I guess just to recap before we go into any specific changes to this age, because I think that's it's a good thing to look back a bit. At the end of last age, ignoring any of the changes that were made this age, right? Just in terms of blue sky thinking goals, or whatever the term is that you prefer to use, what were the things you wanted to address going into this age with the changes that were made? Like at the very beginning of the age, ignoring anything that's happened. What was the goal?
So, this age, I think there were sort of 2 main goals. For a couple of ages, we had a goal of promoting more conflict between kingdoms.
Yep.
This age, we continued that, focusing on sort of out-of-war conflict by removing fortified. So just the idea that there would be less land locked away that was not accessible.
Okay, yep.
The other thing was at the same time making sure that there would be some protection for kingdoms getting fed on nonstop with the combination of throttling and the forced ceasefire.
Oh, I've got some stories to tell there. Yeah, For sure. We'll be talking about that. In fact, that's actually one of the topics that you guys see on your screen here. It's got its own little section. How about you, David? Anything else that you want to add to that list of sort of goals coming into this age?
Sure. We did have somewhat of a goal to balance races and personalities a little bit, since, over the past first few ages that we've been in control, we've, had some major mechanics changes and a lot of things, just being significantly different. So the thought process was hopefully getting some balance between the races and, with the mechanics and stuff like that, which, you wouldn't think we did successfully if you would look at the spread of the races and personalities. But other than, undead being, a third of the server, everything else does seem to be fairly spread.
Winter is coming.
Yeah, exactly. It's very apparent in this age. But, it's we thought it was a little surprising that undead was chosen, so vastly over all the others because of just the numbers. We as ex players, playing at a top level, can do the calculations and figure out, what we would have done. And, I can tell you, I would not have chosen undead, based
you would
on
have gone like Dryad Mystic, right? To like feed up Monk. I remember this strategy.
Yeah, we're supposed to keep that quiet.
Okay, well, let's maybe get started and talk about a couple of the changes that have been in the new age so far, because it has been a while since we got on our last show. And I guess the first thing we're going to do is take a look at the stances, because Prosperous has now been introduced as a new stance. So obviously, before it didn't exist. It's basically designed to sort of replace, I guess, kind of replace the function that Fortified was using before. How have you guys felt that Prosperous has worked out? Are you guys using it at the moment? How is it working out for you?
Yeah, my kingdom uses it quite often. It's not necessarily a replacement of Fortified,
complementary, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we use it, for the bonuses that it provides. The penalties that you receive from being in it, from the 20% gains hitting out, doesn't really affect us that much. We're utilizing it to get ourselves into a war stance, get ourselves ready to fight the server, and that's what we use it for.
And have you managed to get much use out of it, Jeff?
Yeah, we've used it before pretty much all of our wars. I think we're in it at the moment. We're using it largely as it was designed, as a pumping stance, not in a stance to sort of stay safe from the server and not interact.
Yeah, and stock GC or anything like that.
Yeah, it's really strange because obviously I'm currently in one of the kingdoms that's in the sharper end of the server. I suspect that's not a secret anymore. But the strange thing that I've found this age so far is that when the kingdom is in Prosperous stance, at the top end, it feels like it's almost been a signal to go, oh, they're preparing for a conflict. Now's not a good time to hit into these guys. And psychologically, it feels like it's still performing a lot of the same function. But I'm guessing that's not really that much of a concern if the rest of the server is still quite open. I think, David, you mentioned at the start of the broadcast how there are kind of targets all over the server and you don't feel like those acres are locked away. Like, I can say that if there are only 2 or 3 kingdoms larger in acres on the server, but as soon as you get below like the top 5, it's basically a lot more open than it was before. Is it fair to say that that's been a success?
Yeah, sure, I'd say it's a success. I do think that the Prosperous does affect the top kingdoms much differently than it affects the rest of the server for the exact reasons you said. There's, besides the fact that you guys probably have ceasefires with the only pink kingdoms that would hit you, it's just.
I mean, sometimes I wish we didn't. That's all I'm saying. No, I think you're right. It's as soon as you add the layer like, it's actually not, if you think about it, it's not actually game mechanics anymore. Someone can say prosperous or fortified or anything else in the game is broken, but the fact is when you actually start to add diplomacy in, and you have ceasefires with a lot of the other kingdoms your size or that are larger than you, it doesn't matter what the game mechanics are, you're not going to be hitting each other, right? And it does actually just take on a really different political dynamic. So it's really hard to equate that to how the game's actually been designed.
Yeah, right. So now you guys are, have the possibility to utilize Prosperous and the Affluent Ritual and kind of get some, stacking of those bonuses and not you receive those drawbacks that other kingdoms are.
Exactly. And I guess, Jeff, a question for you. So it looks like a lot of what Prosperous was brought in to do seems to be largely working on the server. Just to balance that out a bit, were there any bad effects or other effects that maybe weren't foreseen when you brought it in that you're noticing now?
The biggest thing I've noticed is probably more of an issue with the combination of abduct and gangbang protection.
Okay. We have a section on that later on.
Yep, but it's sort of, I think Prosperous has made it a little bit more noticeable, particularly as people use it coming directly out of war.
Sure.
Because those people are tending to get abducted a lot, and make it a little hard to retrain with losses and stuff like that.
Okay. And is there something that you might have in mind as a solution for that? Obviously, without wanting to regress and go back into a gains or less, going into like a fortified stance or something like that. Because naturally, it's sensible to think along those lines, right? But that's exactly where we just came from. What's the tweak?
The tweak, frankly, is looking at how gangling protection works for non-land hits.
Okay.
Today, you get gangbang protection if you get raised or traditional march based on, the percent of land lost and some on troop losses and stuff like that. And it does okay with plunder, but not great. But the way it's calculated on abducts is just not fantastic. So, it's just a matter of how we solve that.
All right. And until you do, I'm going to be abducting all day, every day. I'm actually slightly embarrassed that I don't think I've used an abduct attack this age. Maybe that has to change soon. The problem is we always wait for this land thing that people seem to like. I never understand it personally. Okay, so it looks like they're broadly positive, like one or two unintended side effects, but stuff that we can actually address, and there's no need to roll anything back, which is great. It feels like a good positive step. Let's move on then to the next topic of conversation, because it's we've already mentioned it in our conversations about prosperous stance rituals. Now, Dave, you already mentioned that prosperous and affluent can of course stack, and there are various ways the mechanics can now interact. Talk us through how successful the rituals have been this age, because obviously there are still ongoing tweaks and stuff. Are they feeling like they're in a good place?
I would say so, probably. I can't say a lot from my personal experience. My kingdom, I think we only just put up our second ritual of the age. Which
Bam! Nailed it. Got him. It's alright, they'll all be running for the hills now.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I don't have a lot of experience with the rituals in my kingdom, but, I do feel that they're a lot more in line with what we were looking to have them do for this age, and we've got a lot of really good plans for them next age as well.
Okay, and can you share any of those plans now, or any of those ideas on a chalkboard that you're playing around with?
Yeah, sure. We are considering replacing stances entirely with rituals.
Whoa, that's big.
Yeah, I think might have actually been a suggestion or discussion topic in the thread, but a couple people have mentioned it, and we do think that that seems like a pretty good idea. So we're toying with that right now, and hopefully we can develop a few more rituals. And the idea that the entire kingdom has to work together to get this, whatever it is you're choosing, whether it's going to be protection or, if there's going to be something to do with wizard pumping or economic boosts or your offense or defense, whatever that is, your whole kingdom has to get together and get it going instead of just
Sure.
Monarch waking up at 2 a.m. to click the button to make sure that they get into the right stance.
Yeah. Well, that just means like the Monarch's calling all of us at 2 a.m. instead to go, send me your bloody runes, guys. What are you doing?
Yeah, so
like
now it's not one guy up at 2 a.m. Everybody's up.
Oh, great. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Oh, my God. So we can blame you, like, squarely in your direction for that. And
It's a team game. You've got to work together.
so, Jeff, removing stance... Like, and this isn't obviously official. It's not necessarily going to happen. We're just thinking about it at this stage. Massive disclaimer, everyone watching. Removing stances entirely and replacing them completely with rituals. Are there... what are the main effects you see that being, and can you spot any drawbacks in that approach?
So, I mean, one of the nice things about stances is that it gives the monarch an ability to sort of pick some bonuses for the kingdom, without having to have organized effort behind it.
Sure.
And that is good, particularly in smaller or less organized kingdoms. And so, to some, what I don't know, but I haven't looked at, is how much those kingdoms actually use stances other than normal.
Sure.
It would be sort of interesting to look at that. But that would sort of be one of my major concerns. I don't think there's anything sort of core about the stances to gameplay as they exist today. Stances were created sort of as a replacement for the ability to declare hostile. Because it used to be the stances were hostile and peaceful, and it was in relation to another kingdom. Rituals could sort of fill the same kind of role if we wanted them to. It's just a question of whether we want those set of bonuses to be available sort of for a monarch to decide between on their own versus, for a kingdom to set up together.
Yep. Okay. Good. And it's going to make organization really quite important, because like you guys say, it's no longer the decision of one person, or maybe after discussion of a small group of people. It's getting the entire kingdom to come together. While that makes a lot of sense at the sharp end of the game, if stances are removed entirely and replaced by rituals, does it risk making the game making rituals as a mechanic a little bit too difficult for kingdoms other than the top kingdoms to use? Are you going to consider making rituals any easier, so that, say, if you pick the bottom half of kingdoms on the server at any one time, it's not too difficult for them to also use the mechanic just like everyone else?
Yeah, I mean, that would certainly be one thing we have to think about is, if we were to make those changes, do we have to make it a little easier to get a ritual off? I'm not sure. We did want rituals to not be the easiest thing in the world to get done, and I think we've more or less achieved that, while at the same time they're still being achievable in fairly disorganized kingdoms. And maybe it requires a new mechanic which allows cost scaling over the course of the age, so that early on in the age it's not quite as hard to cast as it is easy late in the age.
Sure.
Because the combination of sort of growth and the production science really sort of trivializes it by late age.
It's something that I think is an interesting point for the game population, and just ease of almost friendliness to new players. Because if kingdoms at the moment, like David, the kingdom that you're playing in right now, you have stances and rituals available. You've only just cast your second ritual of the age. It's obviously reasonably tough to get everyone to do it, right? But at least you still have the stance mechanic where the monarch can flip that on, and when you guys are organized, you have the ritual to top that up as well, which is great. If the stance was removed entirely, it's just going to... One thing it could do, I should say, is put a lot more pressure on you guys to make sure you nail the rituals, and suddenly a lot of the smaller kingdoms and their ability to do that kind of falls away. Maybe the solution is, and I'm thinking out loud here, so shoot it down if it makes no sense, but maybe the difficulty in casting a ritual is proportional, or at least somewhat proportional to how large your kingdom is, for example. So that you have to have 25 really active provinces at the sharp end to get anything remotely done for it. But the super extra effort is worth it if you're getting that like 2% difference over the guy in second place, for example, because the kingdoms will fight to do that. Whereas at the lower end, it's like, well, if you're at the bottom 20 kingdoms on the server, it's really easy to get a ritual off and it's fine. And it helps you to try and overcome those barriers and keep those kingdom sizes a little bit more condensed so that you promote the fighting between the kingdoms that you've already done, actually, to be fair, with the removal of fortified this age. So that could be something for discussion later on as the age progresses, when you guys get some more data.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting idea.
So just looking through my notes here, we have another and additionally, okay, so this is interesting. I have a line here that says wizard production in my notes, and I wonder if that's going to be something that a ritual will help affect. And also, in conjunction with end of war ceasefires to be extended by a day, with the possibility of some more features to help make end of war ceasefire more effective. Can either of you talk me through what these mean?
Sure. The with the removal of that fortified protection and the sort of the effects that we're seeing from Prosperous and everybody getting abducted with all the gangbang protection, how it works and all that stuff, all these things are sort of combining to make it look like it may be useful to extend end of war ceasefire by a day. In addition to that, making it a little, I don't want to say easier, but rebuilding and preparing yourself for coming out of war, getting all those things to align quicker. Some of the features possibly contemplated would be to either cancel buildings that are under construction or use building credits to raise buildings on all provinces instead of just dwarf.
I love the cancel idea, by the way. That's great.
Yeah. So some of those things really help those provinces that get, hurt badly, always rebuilding their acres or always have acres in training. The war all of a sudden ends and you've got 12 hours left of a building.
Sure.
You've got no peasants, you've got no income, you've got nothing to do. So it's like 24 hours before you can actually build your acres, even though you've got free building credits. So some of these things that might help speed up the recovery process and, providing that extra time to make sure that those, provinces have a viable chance to come out into the server.
Now, of course, you guys mentioned earlier that a lot of the, how do I put it, like the end of war protection needs looking at a little bit because of the protection on non-land attacks, right? The diminishing returns on gains from non-land attacks might need to get looked at. Is there a chance that extending the end of war ceasefire by a day and giving provinces these extra tools almost becomes overkill? Because if you change something else about the game and it turns out coming straight off out of war non-land attacks aren't really that much of an issue anymore, then maybe you don't need to extend the end of war ceasefire, or maybe you don't need to cancel buildings under construction or something like that. Do you see them as part of the same issue, or do you see them as two distinct things that are being addressed separately?
I would say I see at least gangbang protection on non-land attacks and coming out of war, sort of not being ready as distinct, at least. The other ones I'm a little less sure on.
Okay. By the way, I've just realized I've subconsciously moved down to the next item on the list you can see on your screen. And it's, I want to point out, I spent a while thinking up a suitably publishable name for what I now call multi-hit protection, and then Dave and Jeff have just gone out and not even cared. So I give up. GBP, gangbang protection, whatever. I don't even care anymore. Let's do this. Let's move on to a bit of conversation specifically about that. You mentioned...
You don't like gangbang protection? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, there's no way for me to answer that on a live broadcast on the internet without something looking bad, right? So, yeah, sure, no, I love it. Let's go. Coming out of a war in Utopia and the abduct problem is an issue. And it's an issue that we're obviously looking to resolve. But that also isn't the only place where GBP applies. Are there any other specific time periods that you're looking at, or specific places where actually this still needs to get tweaked further? Or is this something that is specifically about abducts at the end of a war?
It seems to be most prevalent with the abducts the amount of abducts that are going on in the server just seems to be extraordinary. For whatever reason, I think that's just the way people have trended with the mechanics and the way the science system works. It's just what we're seeing, and I think that it's something that needs to happen.
Okay.
And I mean, it's something that's been known for a while, if not top of mind. I've seen kingdoms do learn waves designed to kill military before, because it doesn't give kingdom protection. So if you can 4x someone, you can destroy kingdoms functionally.
It tends to be I can see that being really effective if you're not like suffering fewer troop losses every time and things like that. You just end up, especially in a kingdom where they're starved of gold, or you've managed to rob all their gold beforehand, which may well be one of the reasons David's slightly surprised a third of the server is undead. But maybe that'll be something left for the Q&A. Okay, so it looks like that's the specific area around the abducts and the non-line attacks straight after a kingdom comes out of war, where the multi-hit protection, GBP, gangbang protection, whatever you want to call it, is hopefully looking to get changed a little bit. And presumably this is not like a tweak that's going to happen mid-age. This is all for the start of next age, right? No hot fixes here.
Oh, definitely.
Okay. And that moves us on quite nicely to another interesting new feature that was brought in this age. And we're going to be talking about throttling. Now, have you... So, for anyone watching, because I'm guessing it hasn't exactly happened to all kingdoms yet, when the difference between aggressive attacks from your kingdom and another kingdom reaches some critical threshold, then your kingdoms go into an automatic ceasefire. It's to stop one kingdom beating up really heavily on another kingdom, and that just non-stopping. So at some point, the referee comes in and calls the tie off.
So that's not quite true.
Okay, go for it.
So there are two different things. The first one is throttling when there are a lot of hits relative between Kingdom 1 and Kingdom 2.
Yep.
Gains go down.
Yep.
The second one is a button that the kingdom being hit gets at 100-point difference.
Got it.
If
Okay,
they're
yeah.
out of war, where they can just say, "Yep, ceasefire."
Subtly different. Okay, so that's effect. And that button, but is that button different from automatic surrender?
That button is automatic surrender.
That button is automatic surrender. Okay. Have you guys experienced this either for you or against you this age so far?
No, I have not.
No? Okay, cool. That means I'm the only person that's been involved in a conflict where these things have happened. Great. In that case, before I tell you about my experience with it, do you guys think it's working as intended? And as part of your answer, you have to tell me how you intend it to work so that I can call you out, possibly.
I haven't heard of any issues with it, so I'm a little in the dark.
Jeff?
So I would say the surrender button was intended to prevent larger kingdoms from endlessly waving smaller kingdoms, and I would say that it has successfully done that, even in the situation your kingdom was involved in.
Okay. We're going to underline that and caveat as much as possible. Yeah.
In the case of throttling, I would say, in large part, throttling was something that had existed previously. So, prior to last stage, throttling maxed out at 50% instead of 75%. And, stacked with fortified or two fortifieds, you could wind up with gains even lower than you can wind up with today.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think the one issue we've seen with throttling is as it relates to either ops not getting throttled going back, or
Sure.
Kingdoms in War range seeing the full throttling.
Okay. So I don't even necessarily have opinions on much of what's going on with throttling, but I'm going to give you guys a couple of interesting little stories, if you like, about what's kind of gone on during the conflict. So the conflict I'm talking about is Beast Blood going up against Ronin a little bit earlier on in the Age. I think it actually finished something like 3 or 4 days ago, so it was fairly recent. And from what I understand, Beast Blood basically waved Ronin, who kind of didn't wave back and were kind of refusing to talk as well. So usually a wave happens, the kingdoms talk to each other, they come to some sort of agreement, and they move on for at least for a while. This didn't happen, so Beast Blood kept hitting. Now, this engineered three very interesting scenarios. The third one in particular is my personal bugbear, because in fact, you can probably work out what province I am from this, because I got hit on so much. But the first, and the more important one to you guys, is that suddenly meter management became really quite interesting. Because as soon as 1 or 2 hits came in from Ronin, for example, it was very easy for us to calculate how many hits we can afford to push in before the automatic surrender button actually gets given to the other kingdom. So hits were starting to get planned around, guys, let's wait for the end of the day in Utopia time, because after a certain hour, we'd be able to get an extra hit or 2. And it also meant that one of the features that was introduced to the game a long time ago, to try and get more gains on a single hit, was started to get used. We started to use +2 on attacks, +3, +4 hours on the attacks, knowing that no one's going to, hit us 2 or 3 times back for this, because they have to watch the meter and they don't want to be able to give away too many free hits. So even with the throttling on the gains, instead of it cutting the conflict short, in a way, although it was less intense, it prolonged it. So that's not necessarily good or bad, but that's just like side effect number 1. I think that was kind of 1 and 2 combined. I will come back to the second one if I can think of it. And the third one, which really frustrates me, is you guys deciding to go ahead and introduce targeting a particular type of building when you burn them down. And because I may have been playing a race that's slightly weaker, shall we say, in the thievery department, when all my watchtowers started disappearing and the assassinate wizards came in, I didn't really appreciate the fact that nothing was throttled the other side. And I came out of the conflict on like 0.3 WPA with absolutely nothing I could do about it. It was disgusting. I actually had 1,000 acres landlusted from me in an hour and a half. Like, David, that's gross. That is this is not like year 11 where everyone's 5,000 acres and that's like not unheard of, okay? I lost 1,000 acres in 90 minutes and I'm blaming you.
I've experienced that before, so welcome to the club.
Rip. Oh, that was rough. And obviously you can't do anything back. So it was painful times. Obviously, at the end of the day, it was a big kingdom technically beating up on a smaller kingdom. Although I would argue it's more to do with no one came to a CF agreement. So as a result, I think Beast Blood came out fine. But there were a couple of provinces, mine notably, that really didn't appreciate the way the mechanics were working out in that situation at all. And it felt like I was getting the brunt of it at one point. I was cursing your name in my sleep.
Yeah, well, we'll look into it. We should probably consider that.
But what do you guys think about... Is it positive, negative, or it just happens to be a thing that because of the mechanic of the auto-surrender as part of throttling, it ended up prolonging the conflict because people were working out how many hits they could afford to make before the button gets given to the other kingdom. There's a kind of awkward stalemate on the battlefield there while the ops get traded on top.
I don't really necessarily see it as a bad thing if you're reducing the number of times you're hitting a smaller kingdom to prevent them from being able to force you into a ceasefire.
Oh, I have someone in chat saying that might have been Beast Blood Amarisi, not Beast Blood. Not Beast Blood Ronin. Yeah, that might have been slightly different. My bad. But basically, the exact same situation occurred. I don't know. Someone texts me at 2 a.m. I go, who am I hitting? Okay, see you later. And I go back to sleep. I don't ask these questions, all right? Okay. I think you're right. Like, obviously I suffered some of those side effects. It's not necessarily a positive or a negative thing. It's just interesting that that ends up being a side effect of it. And do you feel it's something that's being used enough? I think it's interesting that it's only actually happened a couple of times on the server so far. Are you guys maybe setting the goalposts a little bit too narrow for that to happen? Or is it kind of being used approximately as often as you expected it to be?
It's being used approximately as expected, frankly. The goal was never for it to, be used all the time. The goal was, for it to be used in those edge cases where, certain kingdoms are getting waived over and over again and are much smaller, or things like that.
Fair enough. Okay, well, that's good. And it'll be interesting to monitor, obviously, how much that gets used in the future. I think arguably, it's kind of one of those things where you've introduced it to the game. It doesn't have to be in use all the time. In fact, you can go an entire age without throttling being used at all, and that's not necessarily a bad thing if the other changes that you guys are making are helping the majority of kingdoms to be more dynamic. They're hitting into each other more. The difference between top and bottom land is a lot less because people are fighting more and things are evened out. You might never need it. So it's one of those mechanics that's kind of there when you need it as opposed to designed to be used all the time. So I think that's perfectly fair. I think, unless anybody has anything to add, that's about it on throttling, right? So let's go ahead and let's move on to something that isn't game related. In fact, it's actually our last topic before Q&A, so we're blasting through these this evening, although Q&A could take a little while. This one is close to the heart of many utopians. I've played since age 18, which I think... Someone in chat will correct me if I'm wrong, but I've basically been playing since circa about 2003. Utonet has always been around. Like, I don't actually know if it was there when Utopia was born. Maybe one of you guys can let me know that. But it's been around forever. It's in the slow process of either being shut down or being transferred elsewhere, and we're not 100% sure what's going on with it. And it looks like, obviously, you guys have been in talks with Utonet to try and see what you can do about that. And I'm guessing you guys have an update for us this evening.
Well, nothing really to update on other than, we're still just waiting on Patrick to have some time available in his schedule. He's got a lot of projects that he's been working on. He was expecting them to finish up, but his time availability to help with the transfer hasn't been there. So
okay.
We're still in talks with Patrick. We have, made the decision that we will transfer it. It's just a matter of when. And, he's been gracious enough to, keep it running until we can make that transfer happen. So, I would definitely not expect it to just shut down unexpectedly one night and never come back on. Okay. So that's what we have for an update until we actually can solidify something.
Okay, that's useful to know, and that's it's really good knowing that there isn't going to be an interruption to that service as well. I know a lot of kingdoms were looking at that thinking, oh, how long do we actually have to find an alternative? And it's nice to know that everyone's in talks and that they will actually have the time to do that. And when the transfer does actually occur, people will be notified and they'll have that kind of grace period where they can go ahead and sort themselves out, right?
Yeah. So I think it was actually evec.org that used to be before Utonet. I remember that.
Okay. When did Utonet get introduced then? Oh, wow. That's a trivia question for anyone in chat. Bart can answer. He can answer in chat. He's not banned from there. Bart will come back to us momentarily, I promise. Okay. So that's really good news. So Utonet, in some guise, is going to continue to live on. And we will wait. Well, we'll wait and see what that day is and what the format is going to be. But I guess on behalf of the community, it makes sense to say thank you to both of you and Monk and everybody else behind the scenes. By the way, guys, Monk was supposed to be here this evening, but he's busy building his little Monk army. He's currently populating a kingdom of 25, and I believe he's just welcomed his newest member. So everyone say congratulations to him when he's back. But yeah, that's good news. The communication for the game will continue. The infrastructure, a big part of the infrastructure supporting the game. will continue to be around. So that's fantastic stuff. And that moves us rather handily into Q&A. Now, I'm gonna.
Before we get started there, we have 50 viewers. I mentioned in the original post that for every 50 viewers, we would auction off some shop item, and I'm just wondering, we should probably do that.
All right, and how do you propose? Whoa, hang on. First of all, what are you auctioning off, and how do you propose to auction it off?
How about for the first auction, we'll do like a province rename? How's that sound?
As in, I get to rename someone? Can you rename anyone you want?
No, we'll give a province rename shop item. I thought we had some plan to auction off Bart's province name if we reach some amount of viewers.
I didn't realize that, but I'll bid. Okay, it sounds like there's a number of things that we need to give away. Shall we do that after Q&A at the end of the show then, since we've hit 50?
Yeah, sure. Sounds fine.
But also, Coyote in chat says, let us rename JoRo. You can bid to me directly. I'll rename my province. You don't need Dave and Jeff to push that through. I'll do it. I don't mind, man. All right, so let's go ahead to Q&A. We've got some giveaways to hand out afterwards as well. And there's quite a lot of good stuff in the discussion forum thread this time around, so thank you everyone on the Utopia Game forums for submitting your questions. There are actually quite a few questions that I'm not going to cover just because in the conversation we've had this evening, we've already covered it based on the way the Age is panning out and some of the changes we're looking to do in the future. So some of those examples are whether we were going to buff End of War Ceasefire, we're considering extending it by a day, whether we're allowing to raise acres that are currently in construction, certainly at End of War we're doing that. Whether or not you would be allowed to do that at any time is kind of an interesting question, but I suppose for the fraction of the cost of the acres you've already built, there's no reason why not. Does anything need to happen with End of War duration and Prosperous? All done. So let's start looking at some of the other stuff. And there's a pretty heavy question here that I'm actually going to leave till towards the end because that could take quite a long time to answer depending on what your opinions are. I'm going to start with one that we actually had on the show, maybe not last time out, but the time before. UI changes to the game. Obviously, everything is text-based. We did actually get an update, a fresh look and feel to the game within, I want to say within the last 10 ages. I hope I'm not wrong there. Do you guys have any plans for improving, or maybe not improving, but updating the in-game UI in particular to attract new players?
Yeah, well, we have been getting some information and doing some research with some app development companies, and part of that, yeah, it's very exciting. Part of that may be allow us the possibility to integrate the app that is developed as the web UI. So, depending on how it's ported out and what we how we build it, we could possibly see the option anyway for web users to utilize the mobile platform via the web. Of course, we'd never want to actually get rid of that awesome web UI, since I would still use it, right?
Well, we need to talk about reintroducing the frames in the UI so that I can select my Utopia MIDI music in the top left corner. Disappointed when that got removed. We need to put that back in, right?
Yeah, I don't know when that happened.
Oh, that must have been like age 25, age 30. Like, it was back when the internet went, we're using tables now, not frames. So that's quite a long time ago.
Yeah.
Oh man. So you're basically saying that the potential web app that is being now officially being developed, if it's fair to say, for Utopia,
not officially being developed yet, but okay. we are looking into it.
And if so, the UI from the mobile app could be ported backwards, if you like, into the browser to update the in-game experience that people see on their browser, rather than the other way around where we're trying to port an old UI and sort of remodel it into an app. You're looking at doing it the other way around.
Yeah, that'd be an accurate statement.
Cool.
Well, and beyond that, frankly, depending on how we build out the mobile app, we'll probably need to build some more sophisticated APIs that make it possible for both better web experience and then also, more accessibility for folks who want to, look at, mods or add-ons or stuff like that.
Okay. Oh, well, looking forward to seeing what developments are like. I think it's fair to say by the time we have episode 5 air, we might get a couple more concrete details about how that's coming along. Maybe we can auction off for money going towards app development costs the opportunity to rename Bart's Province. Maybe maybe that'll get us an iOS and an Android app and 20 years worth of updates.
Yeah, maybe.
We can work something out, I'm sure. CP also asked, will we ever bring back cow fights? Who wants to jump in on that one?
Cow fights are an interesting question because they've changed drastically over the years.
Your dinner's ready, by the way. I guess for anyone watching who might be a newer player and is very silently raising their hand in the background going, Jeff, what's a cow fight? Do you want to explain the mechanic that they're talking about?
So cows are essentially what people have referred to as provinces who have sucked down most of a kingdom's explore pool. So, generally they'll be, 10, 15, 20,000 acres larger than the bulk of provinces in both kingdoms that are fighting. I would say, the change this age was designed to make cows a viable option, even if not necessarily the number one best option in all circumstances.
Sure.
And I sort of think we like that direction where, if you wanted to compete for land, cows are not necessary the way that they used to be. It used to be if you did not have a cow, you would wind up losing a conflict against the kingdom that did.
Yeah, because they'd be able to finance most of the war, and when one kingdom started running out of money, the kingdom with a bigger cow with more income, well, that's one aspect of it.
Right, they'd be able to finance it, but they'd also be able to grow safely without getting opped, and they'd be able to massacre the other kingdom's thief mages, and they're just a large snowball effect from having this huge province with lots of econ and tons of military and lots of thieves and mages that can't be opped.
So then Illit got nerfed?
Yeah, I guess you could say that, yeah. And so, the change to the province pool was, partly because the cow mechanic was sort of bad for letting kingdoms sort of compete naturally or, decide they want to compete later in the age or, sort of become serious whenever they want to become serious. So, never been a huge fan of the sort of ultimate cow structure. But this age, with the change to be able to aid the explore pool, it does become possibly viable.
It's certainly become possible. I haven't seen examples of kingdoms that have shot up a cow and then tried to pop into a conflict, but I think that's mainly because, like you say, in situations where it's not necessarily the number one desirable option, most kingdoms at the sharp end of the stick will naturally not want to do that because they want to squeeze every percentage of advantage they can. So I haven't seen many crazy shot up cows at all. In fact, I'm struggling to remember the last time I checked a kingdom page of someone that did that we were checking out, but I imagine it becomes more viable the smaller the kingdom is.
I don't know that that's really the case. I actually suspect if you ran the numbers, you would discover that it would be viable for top kingdoms this age.
Okay, so it's not just Outplayer's Empire who's looking to abuse your new mechanic. Then I haven't maybe I'll have a sit down and we'll do some 20k cow lottery in the kingdom a little bit later on. But so far. No real issues. To answer the original question, will we ever bring back cow fights? Arguably, it's feasible for them to have been brought back now. It's just that because it's not mandatory, you don't see kingdoms versus kingdoms with lots of cows all over the place. But we could do it if we wanted to.
Yeah, I think also part of that equation is the amount of land that gets removed when transferring acres in the explorer pool, and the trade balance effect that you see from that makes it more difficult to do early in the age. Now that we're, at this point in the age, we could possibly see something, starting to materialize.
Okay, so keep your eyes on this space over the next couple of weeks to see if any of the top kingdoms choose to start trying to shoot someone up, basically. All right. Well, moving on to the next question. Basically obligatory. Thank you, Astron, for this. Guys, let's have an update on Genesis. We all want Genesis. We're all thinking about Genesis. We're all talking about Genesis. What's Genesis? Where's Genesis? Talk to us.
Well, I don't have a lot of great news other than the fact that there are only 2 things in the queue currently for us to work on. One of them I'm not going to tell you about, and the second one is Genesis. So,
how do you pronounce the new race? Is that the thing in the ahead of the queue? Have you worked that out yet, David?
No.
Say
not
it.
Yet.
Go on. How do you pronounce it?
We don't have a new race.
Well, I mean for this age.
You mean Bokan?
Oh, okay. You've got that now, right? It's definitely
Yeah,
Bokan now, is it?
That's my go-to.
All right. I'm just checking. All right. So it's basically the second thing in the dev queue.
Yeah, so right now, we've got, of course, Age 74 mechanics and things that we're already working on. We made sure to try to give Monk as much time to work on the things as possible, considering his new addition. So, he's not going to have a lot of time, and we wanted to make sure he had the availability to utilize his time effectively when he did have time to work on it. So
you would think that if someone's a developer and for circumstances beyond their control is also awake 21 hours of the day, like they'd be more productive rather than less, right?
You would think so, but I don't know. I'll have to ask him that one.
I mean, even full grown-up monks are pretty demanding, so I can only imagine what a little baby monk is. So
yeah.
Now he'll be back in a couple of weeks, I'm sure. We'll try and get him back on for the next show.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we've got Age 74 stuff that's already in the works, and these 2 major things, like I said. One, but we actually refer to it as multi-worlds because the functionality that it will provide will allow us to offer not just Genesis, but any additional server type that we want to offer. Speed rounds, war tournament stuff, like all that thing.
Yeah.
All that stuff is just going to be inherently possible when we allow this multi-world stuff to take place. So
nice.
That is number 2 in the queue, and yeah, we're excited.
But we won't tell you what number 1 is, because number 1 might still take 3 years. But it's number 2 in the queue, guys. Don't worry, it's coming. Cool. So update on Genesis. We have recently seen the introduction of Refer a Friend. Do you guys have any provisional numbers or a feeling on how that's working for you so far? And do you have plans other than this in the short term to increase the player base? Big question.
Yeah, so Refer a Friend is not quite taking off as we were hoping that it would, but we've got, a decent number of referrals so far.
Okay.
We are seeing a positive impact from it at the moment. We do have plans to utilize other options available to us, via marketing. We've utilized some Facebook marketing so far. We really wanted to wait to be able to offer the people that are entering the game for the first time a welcoming experience. So we've got a few things that we're fairly comfortable with to allow us to do that. So, we're preparing to ramp up our marketing efforts. We've tested a little bit. We're fairly comfortable with what we've seen as results, and we look to do more of that in the future.
Is there any sort of thinking along the lines of before marketing begins, or maybe before marketing gets ramped up for the game, you guys are looking to put down a little bit more of the infrastructure that makes it friendlier to new players, like, for example, I can keep going back to it, like the Utopia app, or even Utopia integration as a game within Facebook or something like that? Is there any are there any conversations along the lines of, hey, if we get one of those things in place and market that, or is it more a case of actually they're quite separate, and what you guys are marketing at the moment is the game as it currently stands?
At the moment, when we do the marketing, it is the game as it currently stands. But there are a couple of things that need to happen to make the game more friendly to truly new players before it's worth, significant investment to bring in new players. Because it's a question of how do you keep a new player in the game for more than a couple of days.
Yeah. That actually dovetails quite nicely into one more question that we had, which was a lot of the changes that you guys have made have been really positive to people who have played the game for a long time, because kingdoms are more dynamic. You're seeing a lot more attacks. You're seeing kingdoms of similar sizes engage in more conflicts. But is a side effect of that launching a new player into a game where they get hit non-stop, for example, in the first couple of days, and it makes it more difficult for them to stay for longer? Is there any truth to that statement? Is that a possibility?
It's hard to say. There are a couple of different points where people stop playing. There are plenty of players who make a promise to never log in again. My assumption there would be they didn't want to not interact for 24 hours.
Multi.
Or their multis, sure. Alternatively, there are folks who will log in, once and then a couple days later, then a couple days later.
Mm-hmm.
And, for those guys, it may well be, hits that ultimately drive them out of the game. And then there are a few other kinds of things where they'll be active for a period of time and then stop. But just need to have a better understanding of why people are leaving, so that we can, make sure it's retaining properly before we spend a lot of money on marketing.
Okay. And I mean, the questions are starting to flow into each other at this point, so I'm just going to keep going at them. Bam, bam, bam. What is, I guess we're talking about attracting players to Utopia and some of the marketing efforts that we're doing, and how we obviously want to continue getting new players into the game. And, as much as we're giving the good and bad of everything, it looks like everything so far is a net positive. Do you guys have a strategy or vision of where you guys see Utopia 5 years? It's so weird to say 5 years and not 20 ages from now, but we'll go with 5 years from now. What do you see Utopia looking like in age 94?
I can't even. That's a long ways away.
Do you guys have do you guys maybe have a general long-term? We don't know when we're going to hit this milestone, but we have 2 or 3 super clear strategic milestones that we want to hit with the game at some point in the distant future. Is that a thing?
Yeah, I mean, I've got milestones that I've, go back to the due diligence of, whether or not purchasing, the game was going to be viable. And, some of those milestones, I had, I believe it was at the end of the first year, we wanted to have, close to 10,000 users. It was either 10 or 20,000. I can't remember specifically, but I think after the first year, we wanted to have about 10,000 and, be growing upwards of 20,000 after 2 years.
Wow, doubling in 4 ages is quite a... That would be quite an achievement, actually, after the first 10,000. And obviously, you're still in the process of that journey, and there's only so quickly you can actually make changes to help that come about as well, because a lot of these things have to happen at the end of an age, I presume.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of things that just take time to manipulate, and so we've only had that opportunity 3 or 4 times now, and what we have been able to see, which I think is a positive, is that the game has been declining for a long time, and I don't necessarily see that decline occurring anymore. We've sort of hit that bottom, what I'd like to call it, the bottom, and hopefully it's positive from here on out.
Great. Well, it's good to know that the trend's effectively if you like, no longer valid if we're actually starting to piece her out and look at that player increase moving forwards. That's really good. And I think that actually dovetails very nicely into the big question that I'm going to let Dave and Jeff basically either go on a rant or go on a big storytelling spree. I don't actually know what's going to happen here, but just a quote from a Callier on the forums. As owners and ex-players, do you guys experience any kind of burnout? Because a lot of players, especially in top kingdoms, and you guys know what I'm talking about, players get burned out, let alone if you're in leadership. And if you're in leadership and you're away 22 hours a day coordinating a war, you get burnt out real quick. So now that you're ex-players and you're owners of the game, how does that manifest itself? Maybe you're going to surprise us with actually it doesn't at all. Like, what? Talk to us emotionally what it's been like for you guys now as owners of the game.
Sure. Well, the player experience is, we all know what that is. It's certainly different as an operator of the game. I really wish I had more time available to spend doing the things that I used to do as a player. Developing strategies and executing those things, and target searching, looking at the server, like all those things. That's what made Utopia fun for me. And those were the enjoyable aspects of it, next to interacting with your kingdom mates and, talking to people, around the world and stuff like that. The fun that I got out of the game was, interacting and executing the plans and strategies that I would come up with. So, I don't have as much time to do that anymore. Instead, a lot of my time is spent, on the operating side, developing ideas and plans, and, taking care of all of that stuff that needs to be done. So, I could see the load just shifting from one area of the game, which, you could say was more fun to something that's, per se less fun, but, it's a different aspect. Now I'm we're working together to, plan the direction of the game and to plan, how things are going to work out. So, like, it's a different type of plan. Instead of planning to, execute a certain strategy, we're planning to determine how the gameplay is going to pan out, what's going to be fun for users, and how it's going to work out. So it's just different.
How do you feel about it? I'm not letting you escape the question. I understand that the nature of what you're doing is different, and to be honest, it sounds really interesting. But how are you feeling? Are you more or less tired? What has your attitude towards the game as a whole changed for the better or the worse? Don't worry, boys. I'm not letting him get away.
I'm sure my attitude's changed a little. I don't, I can't say that it's changed negatively. I really haven't had the time. It's only been 6 months to really determine, to really experience this sort of roller coaster, that if you want to call it that. But how do I feel about it? I like it. I enjoy it quite a bit. Being on this side of it is a lot of fun, and I really can't wait for some of the plans and strategies that we have in the future to really take hold and make it a more fun experience for the players. Right now, I remember the last few ages before I became one of the operators, that the game's obviously fun. It's got those the aspects that bring us back and keep us playing, but for me, the fun of Utopia was really when there was a whole lot of people. There was tons of stuff to do. Like, just that's what made Utopia great. And I'm really excited to, work towards getting it back to that state. That's important to me, and that's my objective, and that's what's making this side of the game fun for me.
There's the emotion we were looking for. Make Utopia great again, ladies and gentlemen. Jeff, you've had some time to contemplate how you're going to dodge the grilling that I just gave Dave. So, let's have it. How has being part of the game ownership affected just you in person in general, your attitude to the game, what your hopes and aspirations have been for it, your outlook on how you go about doing things? Talk to us about how it feels.
One of the things I did not expect is that actually knowing the formulas takes a lot of the magic out of the game.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Keys to the
I
vault.
concur. I concur with that.
You know, because that's one of the interesting things about, you know, being a player is you don't always know exactly what you'll get with your rob or your op or your attack or whatever. Even with sort of the best tools, there is still a little bit of, you know, uncertainty and, you know, struggle with, oh, the formula changed a little bit this age, you know, what's it going to look like? And you know, just knowing the formulas removes some of that magic and interest of you know, comes from being a player.
Sure.
You know, I wasn't really expecting that. I thought it would be, you know, sort of as fun to play around, you know, as a player. But you know, not quite as much. You know, but there's still a lot of, you know, interest, and you know, Dave and I have a lot of passion for the game. You know, obviously I've spent a ridiculous number of hours playing the game over the course of my life. And you know, really passionate about thinking about what we can do to bring back a lot of the fun that came from, you know, having a large server. You know, because one of the other things that, you know, sort of I discovered near the end of playing is, you know, when we're down to sort of this 3,000-ish players, you know, and just you know, maybe you're only dealing with 100 people on a regular basis. You know, it removes a lot of the possible strategies from playing the game. And you know, that's one of the things that I think keeps people playing, is that there's not only one thing you can do and it's the same every age, but instead that there's, you know, variety, and people can do drastically different things to be competitive with each other, and that's, you know, harder to do on smaller player bases.
Sure. Well, I'm not even going to bother try and dissect that. I think you poured it out beautifully, and it's really interesting to see the good, the bad, and everything in between about the transition that you guys have made from playing the game and from being part of the team that runs it. It's really like there's never any questioning the passion that you guys have, because at the end of the day, you wouldn't be the game owners, you wouldn't be trying to drive this forward in your spare time if you didn't think it was a pursuit worth doing. So aside from proposing and counting down the days to when we're going to have a server-wide Utopia meetup in Vegas, because that obviously now has to happen again, I should add, there's been a few in the past. I think it's great, the direction that you guys are trying to take things in. I think it's really encouraging as well for the community to hear that, yes, the game's been in decline for a while, but actually things are relatively stable now, and there are all these cool things that we've got in the pipeline. I'm looking forward to the completion of whatever number one item is in the development queue, because that means Genesis is coming along in a bit. I'm really excited to see the tweaks that we're going to be making to rituals and stances potentially for next age, along with the end of war ceasefires, because it looks like everything that's happened this age has broadly been a really positive step, and now it's a case of tweaking. And I guess that kind of leads me to an interesting follow-up question that I didn't think about before. But we are actually at a stage where we're not doing massively drastic things to change the game fundamentally. We're at a stage where we're just tweaking things for the next stage. And 6 months into ownership, basically 2 ages worth. Did you guys think that you would reach this kind of point this soon after taking over? It feels like that's a really good place to be, doesn't it?
Well, you know, I think it's a bit of a cycle. You know, it makes sense to do larger changes and then spend a couple of ages doing smaller things and then larger things again. You know, just as part of how you keep the game dynamic without fundamentally changing the game every single age. You know, and we have some ideas for you know, the future, but you know, also some ideas for ways to do things a little smaller.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we haven't asked, but actually going through the list, it looks like that kind of brings us. Admittedly, you know, the first couple of episodes lasted quite a lot longer than we expected, but that does bring us to the list of things that we had to talk about today.
I didn't write this down. I wanted to remember, and I forgot, but
Okay.
Coyote just reminded me with his Utopia Muga hats. One of the things I've actually been toying with for quite a while, and you know, I had been wrapped up in some other work projects, so I kind of lost track. But
Right.
we are looking to very soon, probably, opening up the submissions for Utopia apparel. So I'm super excited to present the opportunity to like artists and whatnot to, you know, either if you want to, you know, draw new logos or pictures or, you know, just general game art that you'd like to have possibly put on a t-shirt with, you know, all of our Utopia stuff. Some cool ideas that, you know, I've kind of got include things like, you know, end of age t-shirts or something like that, where, you know, age winners, kingdom stats, you know, stuff like that, where people could really customize a t-shirt.
Engraved crowns.
Exactly. I think it could be a lot of fun, and who knows, in the future, you know, we could possibly look at like giving away shirts to kingdom winners or province winners, you know, stuff, chart winners, stuff like that.
Oh, wow. You guys seriously need to work on making sure that we hit the like 20,000, 30,000 players kind of mark, because when I'm walking around town wearing my I got landlusted for 1,000 acres t-shirt, I want someone to get the joke. I'm going to be really disappointed if no one gets the joke, right?
That would be cool. That would be very cool.
Oh, that's awesome stuff. Jeff, is there anything else you wanted to cover off before we go on to, of course, the subject of in-game giveaways, which I have not forgotten about?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. That's cool, because that means...
looking at the chat, I do want to say, you know, if people weren't listening earlier, you know, we are currently bidding out an app, so there is an app coming at some point in the future, I should say.
Yeah.
You guys are like Blizzard soon. With the trademark.
Well, I think we did make I think on our first broadcast, even might have even been with Benjamin on the Triggered podcast. We mentioned that, you know, within our first year, we wanted to be visiting the idea of building or developing an app, and you know, we're at 6 months now. We're right on schedule.
Great. Well, is there anything the community can do to help you with any of those plans, or is that something you're just going to keep under wraps until the right time comes?
If there's opportunity for the community to help, I'm sure you've seen I'm more than open to you know, welcome people who want to contribute. You know, we've got the guide people out there who you know, work nonstop to help with the guide, people doing art, you know, all those types of things. You know, and as far as the app goes, you know, I could see people having the ability to help with like art and maybe even like game design or you know, stuff like that. But you know, we're always willing to listen to ideas and feedback and suggestions. You know, it's the players that make the game great, and you know, whatever people want to see, you know, we're interested in.
All right. Well, looking forward to. Go on. Sorry.
I was going to say, and you know, realistically, if you do want to help as a player, you know, there's discussion happening on the Utopia Facebook page all the time. You know, always great for players to engage with prospective players and, you know, talk to them about what brings them to the game.
Yes, so if you guys are interested in actually getting involved, there is, of course, the Utopia support email. There's the official forums, but the Facebook page, like you rightly mentioned, Jeff, is a great place for you guys to hang out. So until we get our baby army of monks up and running, the game, of course, can use designers, developers, artists, people to contribute with stuff like the guide, all sorts of things that you guys will be able to help with, and everything is effectively happening on a voluntary basis. So please go ahead and chip in. I think, like David mentioned, it is actually the players that make this game what it is. So, without further ado, we're going to move into the giveaway that I know nothing about. So, I'm particularly excited to ad-lib this bit of the broadcast. Before I ask for any details on what's going where, David, what are we actually giving away? Should probably find that out first.
We can give away
A province rename.
Yeah, province rename will go to the randomly chosen viewer.
Okay.
Once we hit the 50 viewer mark, I went to random.org and we got a number from there, and I counted it on the list, and
oh, nice. Okay.
so that person was chosen. I think what I had mentioned was we can look at some of the more active chat participants and maybe collectively choose somebody, or
Binar and Bart.
say that one more time.
Binar and Bart, right? We can have them face off for another
Right.
prize. Oh man, I'm looking forward to when you guys have like speed rounds going and we actually get we can do like a live broadcast where 25 players are effectively playing individually, and the ticks are every 5 minutes until like the top 3 provinces win something.
With commentary, and that would be cool.
I'll be there, man. You know me, I'll be there. I can't wait for it. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to multi-world availability with a speed round.
Now, the person you chose as the winner of the province rename, is he or she still in the chat? That's kind of important.
Yeah, it looks to be so.
All right, so what is probably going to happen here, just because I'm doing this on the fly, trying to work out how this will happen, said person will have to either let us know in the chat or message me privately on Twitch.
Hey.
Yeah?
We've got something more important. I can't believe we forgot about this.
What
Jeff
happened?
was supposed to provide a dryad on a horse or something.
Oh my god, yes. And Jeff, to be fair, was it Jeff provided a dryad on a... No, you provided a dryad on the horse.
I said that it was provided to us on behalf of for Jeff to provide to you.
And so, guys, a little bit of background. On a previous broadcast, me thinking the Warcraft 3 definition of a dryad being basically effectively a purple centaur, if anyone played Night Elf here, I was trying to argue that it's rather difficult for a dryad to mount a horse and head off into battle. And I decided to roast Jeff for this a little bit. It does turn out that the definition of a dryad doesn't have to be something on 4 hooves. But nonetheless, it was an amusing little segment. And I told Jeff he had to go back and draw me a dryad on a horse. And in the broadcast Slack channel earlier today, let me see if I can bring it up on screen. There we go. Someone has actually sent in a dryad on a horse. Jeff, did you actually draw this?
No, I don't draw.
You don't draw. Who drew this? David, who sent this in?
That would be zombies from the forums. You can see there's a thread in the news. I think it's the news section. Or no, it's the Utopia General, where there's a lot of radio or YouTube stuff going on.
They get full credit for putting hooves on the dryad, but the dryad does only have 2 legs. So I feel like either something's been amputated here or they haven't finished the photo. I'm gonna call foul on a couple of the little details there, but the effort looks good. That's a hell of a lot better than I could ever do, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it looks great. I certainly like it.
Oh wow! So someone came to Jeff's aid there. The dryad. I like the little leafy wings as well. I presume that's the source of their power. I don't even know. But nice mask on the horse too, the war horse. I really appreciate that. There's a fair amount of effort that went into that actually. The more I look at it, the more I think someone could not have done this in less than 10 minutes. That's impressive. So Jeff, it looks like everyone's flocking to your side, mate, and my roasting has to take a back page in the annals of history while I slink away undetected. So we're giving away a province rename, and I believe we're also going to give away some credits as well. Is that right?
Sure.
And we know who the province rename is going to, don't we?
I did. It shows that they're still in the news.
JoRo, let's pause
Yep.
for 1 second first.
Yep.
Just wanted to remind people who have been affected by the various natural disasters over the last couple of weeks.
Good point. Yes, the in-game message.
If you email the support team, we can provide credits and increase sitting days for your province. Obviously, don't worry about logging in or playing Utopia while dealing with, recovering your house or whatever you may be going through.
But if anyone has actually started up a petrol-powered generator anywhere so that they could log into their PC and make an attack on their province, I want you to mail in the photo. Like, you don't have to do that, but if you do, I want to see it. So, no, that's a really good point, actually. Obviously, a lot has been going on in the world recently, and just know that, obviously, Utopia is not something you can just switch off for a week, but if for any reason you do need to do that, the support system is here. All you have to do is reach out, and we will be on hand to help. So that's a really good and really important message to take away. Now, I think, before I move on to whether we're giving away credits, David, it probably makes sense for you to let us know who the winner of the province rename is, and then he or she, assuming they're still in the chat, can either message in the chat to let you know what their in-game username is in Utopia, so you can give them the prize. Or if you don't want to announce that publicly, you can message me privately on Twitch, and I will pass it to David and Jeff. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I just I posted in the chat. When I click the view chat, it shows them as still there, but I can't highlight them or anything.
No. But if you just announce it, hopefully we can call them out. Is it?
Yeah, Yoka.
Yoka.
I did send him or her a private message, but haven't heard back yet. So
Yoka, I see it. Yokha.
If we don't hear from them in next before we end, we can give it away to somebody else.
All right. Well, you can go ahead and highlight them in chat as well. Let's see if they are here. But congratulations to Yoka. You've gone ahead and won a free province rename. And I think I didn't actually get there fast enough in the document to see whether it was Dave or Jeff who would put this in. But I think we're giving away 10 credits as well in-game.
Sure, yeah.
I still don't know whether it was Dave or Jeff. And it doesn't even matter. We're going to go ahead and give away 10 credits. We've reached 54 viewers now. There are Yoka, my bad, Yokha, yo. Let's make sure he or she goes ahead and grabs that. So we're going to head to another random number generator, and we're going to pull out of the hat on the list of currently active viewers someone to go ahead and win 10 credits. David, are you doing the draw?
I was not planning on it.
You were not planning on it. Great, go do the draw. Hang on a second, I'll do it. And we have so let me see, between 1 and 54, generate. A number has now been generated. Ooh, so I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the list. Sorry, I'm just going to have to count. There's literally no smart way for me to do this. And we have got a winner. So the winner, or the 26th entry on the list there that I can see, is Sunam84. So congratulations to that person. Let me go ahead and say hello and see if they are in the chat. So if you guys are able to respond to us or to me on private message on Twitch, if you prefer, your in-game username in Utopia, we will go ahead and get you those prizes as appropriate. I see Sunam is indeed in the chat, so he's going to go ahead and ping us in a little bit. So well done there.
So I had also put one more item out there for auctioning, which would have been for the most active in chat person of the broadcast. I haven't been paying attention, so no, not necessarily. More most constructive active person in chat. So I think maybe we can be a collective and make that decision, or maybe the viewers can make that decision.
Any nominations, Jeff? Anyone in particular standing out to you? I confess I've been looking for questions, but I haven't been looking too much at individual names at the moment. So I mean, I'm a little biased towards BDB Coyote for reminding me of the Utopia apparel. So Coyote has been here for a while. Frank's been here for a while. Bart's been here for a while. Who else is about? Persian's been here for a while. There's a few familiar faces here, and to be honest, there've been like 6 or 7 people that have just been around basically since the start of the broadcast. I mean, it's a bit difficult to sort of put us on the spot and pick, but I'm kind of, well, unfortunately I'm not picking Monk, but you know, my heart kind of does. I like your nomination of BDB Coyote. I approve of your nomination. And Jeff, I'm not sure if you're aware, but you've muted yourself. I don't know if he was about to say something.
I was aware, but I wasn't about to say anything.
Oh, okay. That's fine then. What do you think? Do you reckon BDB Coyote is a worthy recipient of said award, Jeff?
Yeah, I've seen him participating.
Long live Coyote. All right. Well, so this is what's awkward now, David. We now know he's won. I don't actually know what he's won.
I don't know either.
We will think of a prize and we will get back to you. If you can find a way to ping me your in-game login, that would be particularly useful. So congratulations to our 3 winners. We have Yokha, Yokha. We also have Sunam84. I'm going to write these down so that if for any reason we don't get contacted, we can go ahead and bug people. And we also have BDB Coyote. So make sure you get in touch and let us know your in-game username, and some sweet prizes are coming your way. Utopia swag is officially being given out. And of course, as you've heard Dave and Jeff mention, very soon you might actually get some real life swag as well, so that you can go ahead and wear that Utopia baseball cap backwards to whatever event it's still appropriate to do that to in 2017. Now, guys, I think that pretty much... Or
Utopian crown.
Or Utopian... Oh, can we please have a crown on a cap? Or like a cap with a crown sort of motif around the edges. It's got to happen. Maybe it could be like the Champions League, where when someone's won a crown 5 times, they get to keep a cap. I'd like that. Your suggestions on a postcard.
I like that idea.
So that just about wraps things up for episode 4 of Affairs of the State, ladies and gentlemen. I've been JoRoSaR, joined by David and Jeff. Guys, we've covered quite a lot today, to be perfectly honest. A lot in the Q&A section as well. Really wide and varied questions, and a lot of thought to answer them. Any closing thoughts or comments before we sign off?
I haven't heard from Yoka. Should we give something out to somebody else?
Oh, I'd feel bad depriving Yoka of a prize there. So what I will do is I will reach out to Yoka directly on Twitch via private message and make sure that I get through to him or her. So
Sounds good.
And if that prize is still unclaimed, we'll roll that over and give it out on the next show, so it's not wasted.
Perfect.
Cool. And how about yourself, Jeff?
I got nothing.
He got nothing. He's happy. We're in a good place. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of fantastic insight into the world of Utopia this evening, and a lot of cool stuff to come, even if it is, like Dave and Jeff said, you know, a multi-year kind of project. It's great to see where things are going. It's great to see the state of the game and things continuing to improve. We're counting down to Genesis and mobile apps and all sorts of fun things coming up for the game. But for us at the moment, that is all we have time for. We hope you've enjoyed Affairs of the State episode 4. We'll be back in a couple of weeks, date to be decided, but will be communicated on the forums and in-game. Hope you've enjoyed your evening. Take care, guys. We'll see you soon.